Hello and welcome to another Pots and Trowels video. Glorious weather at the end of the summer and the garden's looking really good. So this week we're going to be looking at the importance of feeding plants to keep them flowering. We're going to be trimming the lavender, checking on the tomatoes in the polytunnel, and stay with us because at the end we're going to be potting strawberry plants to get a wonderful crop next year. And I'm going to start by just giving these lovely ivy leaf pelargoniums a mention. They are absolutely glorious. Fortunately, I don't know the name. They didn't have a label on them when I bought the original plants. And they flowered really well all through the summer. And I'm hoping to keep these flowering right until the end of September or even into early October. And the secret is to feed them once a week with a high potash liquid feed, water them regularly as well. And then as soon as the flowers like this one start to go over, we remove them. Just simply snap them off because then we've got loads and loads of buds that are going to continue flowering. Another plant that needs a little bit of attention at this time of the year is agapanthus, and these have been in flower for about a month in the garden. They're really good as a container plant, and I use them on this little terrace here just to give some seasonal colour, and I've got a mixture of different varieties. This is one of my favourites. This is a lovely one with variegated foliage called Agapanthus Silver Moon, but I've got various ones around. While they're in flower, we need to feed them with a high potash fertiliser that helps to build them up for next year. It helps those flower buds initiate, strengthens the plant, and it also induces winter hardiness, which is really important to get these agapanthus through the winter. And I'm using a high potash feed for them. Now, it's difficult to get an organic high potash, truly organic, but these are usually made from minerals that are mined or quarried from underground. There's a great big potash mine in North Yorkshire, in fact, under the North Sea. So these are all milled together, and what I need in this is a couple of scoops of this into my watering can. So it's 1 scoop to 4.5 litres or a gallon in old money. Give that a good stir, and then again once a week I give them a really good soaking. So get that right down to the roots. And if I do that from now right the way through till the end of September, that will build the plants up. And the other thing I will do, of course, is as soon as the flower heads finish, I'm going to snip them off. But you don't have to. Some people like to leave them on because they look quite decorative. But I'm going to take them off because I want all the energy that would normally go into producing seed to go down back into the plant to build it up for next year. And now I'm going to give the lavender its late summer trim. Now, when it comes to attracting bees into the garden, lavender really does take some beating. They flower from early right the way through till midsummer, make a glorious display, lots of different varieties, and attract, as I say, a range of bees and other pollinating insects. They can tend to get very leggy and straggly with age. They're not a long-lived plant, and in time they get very woody and just flop open. So to keep them bushy and compact, what we tend to do is to give them a trim when the flowers have faded, which they have now, so all the nectar's been taken and they've produced seed. We give them a trim down just to keep them bushy and to produce some side shoots. Now, some people don't like to prune them at this time of the year because these little seed capsules will drop their seeds onto the floor in the winter, and seed-eating birds like finches will come along and feed on them. So what I do in my garden to create a balance so that I'm providing food for the birds is not to prune half of them down. So all the freestanding ones that are dotted around the garden will be left, and then I'll tidy those up in the spring. The ones on the front, however, that are in a hedge, I will give a trim. So these will be left. But I just want to also point out, in this plant here, there's a big area of dead. And that's been caused by my son's dog, Henry, cocking his leg on it. Now, dogweed is like a weed killer. And on lavender and on the box next to it, where he cocked his legs, we got a big dead patch. So I had to cut that out, and I'm hoping that next year it will grow. And as I look inside there, I can see some nice little shoots developing. So I think with a bit of luck, next year that will grow in when it's had its trim. But to the front of the garden now, and we're going to give the lavender there a trim. So here at the front of the house, we've got lavender either side of the pathway up to the front door, and it's just about gone over now, so it's time to give it a trim because I do need to keep these plants tidy. And it's very simple. You just need a sharp pair of secateurs, and what I'm aiming to do is to cut the flower stalks off just into the growth where it started. So it's just literally a tidy up with a pair of shears, which gets rid of all those flower heads off there. That will encourage some of the side shoots to grow. And then in the spring, I might even give it just a second trim just to tidy it up before it really starts into growth and makes more flowers. So that will tidy this up and keep it nice and compact for the winter, whereas the plants on the back garden will provide seed for the birds to keep them happy. If you remember back to our first video, I was rooting strawberry runners, and they've rooted really well now, so they're ideal now for growing on. And it's a lovely pink flowering variety, so they're producing still delicious fruits even at this time of the year. But just wanted to very quickly mention the tomatoes. Tomatoes are in full swing now and starting to ripen. I've got various varieties in the greenhouse. Important that you keep them well fed, again with that high potash feed, just to help the fruits ripen. And then as the foliage starts to discolour at the base of the plant, we can just snap that off, and that allows more light and air to get to the fruit so they ripen all the way up the plant. But I promised potting strawberries, so let's go out and do those. So that can go on the compost heap, and more about that in a few weeks' time. So strawberries, ideal time now to be potting strawberries to get a crop next year. And I've already rooted some of my own, but I've also bought some of a new variety, which is this one. It's called Morlin Centenary. It's a really good commercial variety that's available to everybody. Bought the mail order. These are what we call mist-tipped runners. So it's the ends of the runners have been rooted in commercially grown greenhouses under mist. And this is now what commercial growers are planting, and these provide really strong plants that will establish this autumn and then produce a good crop next year. So I've got 3 here that I'm going to put into a plastic container. If you don't want to use plastic, then of course you can use good old terracotta, or alternatively you can put them directly into the garden now. And I'm going to plant those in there. And when you're potting strawberries, it's important that you don't go too deep. So with this one here, if I twist that round, we can see that's the level it's been rooted in this little cell here. We can see the roots there. So I don't want to bury that. I want it so that that is the compost level. So just dig a hole out, pop that in, and then just lightly firm around it so we can see the level there. Pop my label in. And the reason I'm using this pot is because this is one that I can hang up. This one will then go into the polytunnel after winter. These will stay outside now, be kept watered, they'll grow. It'll go in there in February to bring them on, and we'll get delicious juicy strawberries May, June next year. Well, thank you very much for watching, and I hope this week's jobs and tips have been of use to you. And of course, thank you to Cobra for their continued support in sponsoring these videos. We're on Facebook, we're also on YouTube, so please tell all your friends about it and share, and we'll see you next week.